I should explain that I come from a background of being an environmentalist, and I've worked in London all of my career. I've worked promoting schemes, I've worked for local authorities, trying to drive a better scheme from developers. I've worked on infrastructure and I've worked on housing. And I guess I've listened to a lot of the talks today, and I'm excited about where the challenges for London are coming from. At the same time, a lot of the people that I hear talking, a lot of the discussion, I have heard before, and actually a lot of the people represent the people that I've sat across the table with for the last 20 years, and I do wonder about this leopard changing his spots so suddenly and that ability to embrace change. If there is that ability to embrace change through some of these boardrooms and through some of these local authorities, that's an exciting agenda. And that's really what I want to explore. So I guess that my starting point is very much, if we've got a lot of the same structures, and if we've got a lot of the same development drivers, are we really going to see that much of a change, this change that is promised, and this change that is needed? We have established a whole series of norms and behaviours and even language that is our own, that other people can't actually penetrate it. And therefore, we've closed down a lot of the discussions ourselves. And in doing so, we've created a set of systems which mean that it's very difficult to change our behaviour. Be that from the way that we set aside funding, be that the way we develop programs, be that even the way that we engage with individuals and communities. We talk about placemaking, but we don't talk about community making. And so that's the next shift. When are we talking about community making? And I think that we need to be honest about where everyone comes from. And there's no problem with different individuals and different players all having their own objectives. We just need to understand what those objectives are and what their drivers are. And there is a concern that if the whole debate stays around that binary discussion about numbers, then we won't drive quality. And for me, to drive quality, we need to start right at the beginning. We only need to understand the systems, the processes, and we need to have quality not by exception, and we have some great quality by exception, but we need quality by standard. And the only way we'll get quality by standard is to say, we're going to make the tough decisions. And we're going to make some tough decisions very early in the process rather than delaying them, and we won't be able to satisfy everyone's needs. There's a finite capacity, there's finite resources, there's definitely finite funding. So, if we're moving forward, how do we change these perspectives? How do we get this new quality, not quality driven by a design standard, but quality driven by a behaviour, a belief, a culture? We need to be more outcome focused. This concept that we want a wow factor, that we want a sort of star architect on the scheme, that we're interested in the building and the appearance, that we can design a master plan from a sort of aerial helicopter view looking down. That starting point is never going to achieve us a quality of design that we need if you're living, working, playing in that place. A good example of this is that we're talking about it and someone said, oh, that's a great master plan. But you can't see the pylons from the air. And that's fundamental, that if you're not in the place, if you're not sensing the place, then how can you design for quality? How can you deliver quality? I think if we start to embrace this more upside-down world that we actually have, and by an upside-down world, I mean this more bottom-up interaction, this ability of pop stars by their social media following to change the direction of an industry, is something that we can actually bring into a very traditional engineering, development sector environment and use it as a positive force for good. But we also need to understand what value are we placing on what elements of quality? And quality is only actually defined where it's appropriate. So if we have a quality development and we put the highest specification materials in, that is not necessarily the most appropriate response. And what we need to understand is what, for a particular location, for a particular community, does quality mean for them? And it's not just about the immediate standards. The other side of it is about the teams that we work with. And I wanted to introduce this concept to those who haven't come across it before about I people and T people. It's a very simple concept. If we can pick on a couple of professions, such as engineers and certain architects, they're very strong I people. They have a depth which is represented in the vertical slice of their ability to engage in the creative process. And they have had great dominancy. As society evolves, as our lifestyles evolve, as technologies changes, actually, you need more T people. T people also have that ability to engage in the creative process in that vertical, but on the horizontal of the T is their ability to empathize with others, is their ability to understand other people's positions, is their ability to actually promote the views of others. And until you start building teams that are more populated with T people than I people, you will not get that collaboration that you need for quality communities. So to finish off, I just really wanted to comment on 4 quick areas where I see we can drive greatest change. One is to look at the functional systems, is to look at what is the outcome that we need for a community and a site, rather than focusing on what is the density or number of units that can go within that site. As part of that functional system, actually, we need to address the hidden costs of development. The hidden costs are those costs of poor development versus high-quality development. We're looking at schemes across North and East London where we're working with the local authority and development partners to say, what in the longer term is it worth to have a healthier community living here? If we invest more in that open space, if we invest in outdoor programs, what will it actually reduce from your future budget and spend? If we have community spaces that are maintained by the local community, how can we move that burden back to the community that lives there and actually stop it becoming a burden? To achieve that, you need community ownership. And one of the best examples that I can give you of this is to reset how we measure success. It's a very simple example. A maintenance contractor was asked to cut an area of grass on a regular basis, and it was specified that he needed to keep it during the summer growing months to a specific height of grass. And forever, the community were phoning up and saying, the grass hasn't been cut, the grass is getting very long. So they changed the contract. They spoke to the community and they said, actually, we're going to create a biodiversity area. We're going to create a meadow. We're going to put habitats in. And actually, the longer the grass gets, the better. And actually, we're going to tell our contractor that to increase the biodiversity is now that target. And the response that came back from the community was, isn't this fantastic? Look how this space has changed. The wildlife has come back into our heart. Did you know what I saw out there? And that was the conversation they were having with their contractor. That is community ownership working in partnership. We've had some discussion, and I know there's more discussion coming forward around technology, and there are lots of people promoting technology. I think the key for me about this technology is that we need to know why we need it first, rather than follow it, and we therefore need to understand what our problems are and look at the technology to resolve the issue, rather than to have the technology driving our demand. As a final point, there needs to be proportional infrastructure. There needs to be a recognition that we're facing a world of growing uncertainty and change, rapid development cycles, and growing obsolescence in technology. Within that world, with limited funds to invest, it may actually suit us to invest in an option that we know will not last for 50 years. But it's an immediate solution that doesn't limit future solutions. Investing in long-term infrastructure that will take 15, 20 years to deliver when we don't know that our lifestyles will still be the same is delivering poor quality by not knowing the future.